Mist coiled between the trees like smoke from an invisible fire, carrying the scent of damp earth and decay. The jungle was quiet, unnaturally so, as if the entire world were holding its breath. Beneath a tangle of roots, a man lay motionless, his form swallowed by a ghillie suit woven from moss, mud, and shredded vines. His name, long buried under layers of code and silence, had once been Rafe Callan. Out here, he was only Wraith, the last human sniper still operating behind alien lines. His rifle rested on a bipod before him, its matte black barrel rimmed with frost. He had been still for 6 hours, waiting for movement. Patience had become his only companion. Through his scope, the jungle blurred into shades of gray and green, streaked with the faint shimmer of heat signatures. The scope's cracked display flickered as it strained to render the energy readings. He adjusted the focus with slow, deliberate precision until 3 silhouettes emerged, tall, armored, and unmistakably alien. They moved with the grace of predators that had never known fear. Their armor reflected the pale light that filtered through the canopy, a seamless fusion of metal and biology. Wraith tracked their movements, his finger resting lightly against the trigger guard. His breath slowed, heartbeat settling into a rhythm dictated by purpose. The mission was simple, at least on paper: eliminate the enemy command officers responsible for the genocide of Colony 7. But nothing about this war was simple anymore. The aliens, called the Keth, had broken Earth's defenses within months. Their weapons didn't just kill, they erased. Energy beams that left no bodies, just scorched outlines where people had once been. Humanity had answered with desperation, retreating into jungles, mountains, and ruins. Wraith's unit had fought in those shadows for 2 years before being wiped out in an ambush that left only him breathing. He didn't remember how he'd survived, only why he couldn't stop. He shifted slightly, realigning his view. The Keth officers had stopped near a fallen human comm tower, its structure bent like a skeleton in prayer. They stood over it, laughing in their guttural, rasping tones, the sound reverberating through the fog. Their translator units crackled, forming distorted words that mocked the resistance. Primitive soldiers, one said, still hiding. Another kicked the comm tower, its foot crushing the human insignia etched into the metal. Wraith's jaw tightened. Every insult was a wound reopened. He exhaled slowly and whispered to himself, shifting to .50 BMG. The phrase had become ritual, a steadying mantra. His rifle wasn't standard issue. It was ancient, a modified relic from the old world, resurrected from forgotten armories. Where plasma rifles sputtered against the Keth's energy fields, his weapon relied on something simpler and far older: kinetic truth. The .50 caliber round was physics distilled to brutality, a reminder that even in an age of plasma and shields, raw force still mattered. He checked his ammunition. 4 rounds, each hand-loaded, each a promise. He slid one into the chamber, the metallic click reverberating softly. The rifle felt heavy, almost alive in his grip, humming faintly with the cold. The weight of it steadied him. The wind shifted, carrying the low hum of Keth patrol drones. He froze, counting the beats between their passes. The drones moved overhead, scanning the forest with beams of blue light. When they passed, Rafe adjusted his scope again. One of the officers had raised his arm, activating a holographic display, a tactical map showing captured sectors. Red markers blinked where human settlements had once stood. Wraith's stomach twisted. Each blinking dot was a grave. He lined up the crosshair on the officer's visor. The glass was semi-transparent, revealing the faint outline of an elongated skull beneath. The officer gestured toward the jungle, laughing again. Through the translator's distortion, Wraith heard, "No more ghosts. All gone." The irony made him smile, a small, bitter curve of his lips. "Not all," he whispered. His breath came steady now, his pulse slowing until it matched the rhythm of the falling rain. The jungle receded from his awareness, leaving only the target, the scope, and the cold certainty of purpose. He squeezed the trigger. The rifle's report was deafening, a thunderclap that shattered the silence. Recoil slammed into his shoulder, grounding him in the moment. Through the scope, he watched the bullet's impact as it struck the officer's helmet. The visor exploded outward in a bloom of shattered crystal and alien ichor. The body dropped instantly, limbs convulsing. The other two froze, confusion flashing through their armor's bioluminescent seams. Wraith worked the bolt, ejected the spent casing, and chambered another round in one fluid motion. The second officer spun toward the sound, shouting commands. Rafe fired again. The round pierced the creature's chest plate, sending it sprawling into the mud. The third officer raised a weapon, firing wild bursts of energy that scorched trees and vaporized leaves, but Wraith was already moving. He rolled deeper into the underbrush, vanishing into the camouflage that made his namesake true. For a moment, only the jungle breathed. Smoke drifted upward where plasma had burned through bark. The rain began again, washing the blood into the soil. Rafe listened to the dying sounds of the ridge, crackling leaves, sizzling armor, the fading hum of alien technology breaking down. He could feel his pulse slow to normal. His hands no longer trembled. He crawled back to his original position and retrieved the spent casing, slipping it into a pouch on his belt. A ritual of remembrance. One casing for every life taken. The pouch was heavy now. Looking through the scope once more, he scanned for survivors. None remained. The jungle was his again, if only for a few hours. He allowed himself a small exhale of satisfaction before the cold logic returned. The gunfire would draw attention. Drones, soldiers, maybe even mechs. The Keth didn't forgive humiliation easily. He began disassembling his rifle, methodically, as though the motion itself were a prayer. The forest swallowed the echoes of battle. As he packed the final component into his rucksack, he glanced once more at the ridge below. The shattered helmets gleamed faintly under the rain like glass. He spoke softly, voice almost lost to the wind. Contact confirmed. Then he disappeared into the jungle's shadow, leaving nothing behind but silence and the faint smell of gunpowder, an unspoken promise that the war was far from over. Smoke hung low across the ridge, turning the jungle into a graveyard of light and shadow. The alien officer's corpse twitched once before going still. The reflective armor plate cracked in two like a discarded shell. Wraith adjusted his position, sliding through the mud with practiced efficiency. Every movement was deliberate, precise, stripped of hesitation. The first shot had drawn blood. The second would draw fury. He knew what came next. Through the canopy, mechanical whirring began to rise. Drones, small but merciless. Their engines thrummed in chorus, triangulating his position. He checked his rifle's chamber. 1 round loaded, 3 remaining in the magazine, each a relic of an old world that refused to die. The alien taunting had ceased, replaced by clipped, urgent commands in a language of clicks and tones. The officer's guards had finally understood what had happened. The humans they mocked had found a way to kill gods. The forest exploded. Blue plasma bolts ripped through ferns and tree trunks, vaporizing whatever they struck. The air stank of ozone and scorched sap. Wraith flattened himself against the soil, counting intervals between bursts. Alien firing patterns followed perfect rhythm, predictable in their efficiency. He had studied that rhythm for months, surviving by memorizing it. Between volleys, he crawled 2 meters forward, his body blending with the roots and moss. He reached a fallen log and pressed his cheek against the damp bark, aligning his rifle's scope with the movement below. A squad of alien infantry advanced in tight formation, armor plates shifting like liquid metal. Behind them, drones cast cones of white light across the terrain. He inhaled once, focused on the squad leader, and exhaled into stillness. The rifle thundered again. The shot passed clean through the leader's visor, carrying fragments of molten glass into the soldier behind him. Both fell lifeless. The return fire was immediate, savage, uncoordinated. The disciplined pattern dissolved into chaos. Wraith rolled into a shallow depression, the soil erupting where he had just been. He could feel the heat of plasma fire on his back, smell the sharp tang of melting earth. He had known fear once, but that emotion had been burned out long ago. What remained was focus, cold, unyielding, and methodical. His AI spotter, a damaged voice module built into his helmet, crackled back to life. Trajectory deviation, 5 degrees west. Enemy closing, 40 meters. It spoke with distortion, half a whisper, half static. Battery critical. He muted it. He didn't need confirmation of what his instincts already told him. He retrieved a small cylindrical device from his belt, a thermal decoy salvage from a down drone. He activated it and tossed it downslope. The device shimmered, projecting a false heat signature. Within seconds, plasma bolts tore into the illusion, lighting up the fog with searing light. Wraith used the distraction to flank left, boots sinking silently into the sodden ground. For a moment, the chaos of battle gave him cover enough to think. He remembered his last conversation with Alvarez days before the unit fell. "They think they're beyond pain," she'd said, "but everything breaks if you hit it hard enough." The memory steadied him. The aliens' arrogance had been their shield. Now it was their weakness. He reached a new vantage point overlooking the ridge. From here, he could see the officer's command skimmer resting amid the roots, its engine pulsing faintly. The alien insignia, painted on its hull, glowed through the mist like a wound. Inside that craft were command circuits, encrypted logs, proof of their vulnerability. Destroying it would cripple their local network. He marked the coordinates and whispered to himself, "Objective updated." Below, alien mechs lumbered into view, towering machines with limbs like insect claws, optics burning blue. Each step crushed the forest floor into steam. He steadied his rifle, calculating range and wind manually. The AI was dead again. He was alone with numbers and instinct. The first mech turned its sensor dome toward him, scanning. He fired at the joint where armor met frame. The shot penetrated, a spark followed by a roar as hydraulic fluid ignited. The mech stumbled and toppled sideways, crushing 2 soldiers beneath it. Another one advanced, firing energy bursts that cut trees in half. Wraith rolled, reloaded, and aimed for its optic core. The recoil slammed into his shoulder, but he stayed steady. The round hit true. The explosion was almost beautiful, a burst of molten shards and blue fire lighting the jungle canopy. He allowed himself one breath of satisfaction before moving again. Every second mattered now. The aliens were regrouping, forming a perimeter, their formation tightening like a noose. He crawled beneath hanging vines and slipped through a curtain of moss into a shallow gully. His breath fogged in front of him, and he pressed a hand to the rifle's warm barrel. He could feel its pulse, like a living thing that shared his will. He whispered names under his breath. Alvarez, Chun, Becky, as if speaking them could lend him their steadiness. Each name was a reason, a reminder. The aliens might command the skies, but they would never understand the kind of loyalty born from shared despair. The ridge shook with renewed bombardment. Plasma fire rained down indiscriminately, setting the jungle ablaze. Trees fell in slow, groaning arcs. Ash drifted through the air like snow. Wraith ducked behind a boulder, the heat brushing his exposed cheek. He could taste metal and smoke. His armor's warning lights flared crimson. He ignored them. He sighted through the scope again, this time toward the largest alien officer, taller, bulkier, bearing insignia etched in silver. The creature barked orders, gesturing toward the tree-lean. Even from here, Wraith could sense its fear, the shift from superiority to desperation. He adjusted his scope's magnification until the officer's visor filled his vision. The alien turned, as if sensing the aim. For an instant, they locked eyes through glass and mist. He fired. The shot cracked the silence apart. The alien fell backward, motionless. The troops froze, their formation faltering. Wraith's magazine clicked empty. He lowered the rifle slowly, feeling the tremor in his arms, a mix of exhaustion and grim relief. He watched the ridge burn. Drones circled uncertainly, lacking direction. Alien soldiers retreated toward the smoldering skimmer, dragging their wounded. Humanity's defiance had carved itself into their memory. Wraith remained motionless until the forest quieted again. The smoke thinned, revealing the shattered remains of armor and machinery strewn across the ridge. He had survived another hour, another impossible fight. The thought brought no pride, only purpose. They thought humans needed armies. He murmured, voice hoarse against the static. We only needed one good rifle. He began to move again, disappearing into the wreckage and flame, a shadow among the ruins, already preparing for whatever came next. Rain began to fall over the ridge, slow and deliberate, as if the sky itself mourned the silence left behind. Steam curled from charred roots and shattered armor, mingling with the mist. Wraith crouched among the wreckage, his rifle balanced across his knees, its barrel cooling in the damp air. The battle had ended hours ago, but he remained alert. The jungle never stayed quiet for long. The alien corpses lay twisted in unnatural repose, their luminous blood seeping into the earth. Above them, drones flickered and died, their energy cells exhausted. He could smell the metallic tang of victory, sharp, fleeting, unsatisfying. He scanned the clearing through the cracked scope. The alien command skimmer, once a beacon of authority, now smoldered with intermittent flames. The circuitry within it pulsed erratically, its systems failing. Inside that wreckage was the proof he needed. The data core holding command frequencies, shield codes, and records of their losses. He had risked everything for that core. Humanity needed more than vengeance. It needed information, a reason to fight again. He moved with quiet precision, crossing the soaked ground. Each step left a faint print that rain quickly erased. His armor was battered, its camouflage coating peeling away, but it still kept him hidden from the skimmer's failing sensors. When he reached the craft, he pried open a panel with his knife and pulled the glowing core free. The light shimmered across his gauntlet, painting his hand in alien blue. He stared at it for a moment, an artifact of their power, fragile in human hands. He activated his comm unit. Static hissed before a faint signal responded. This is Outpost Echo 5, identify. The voice was wary, exhausted. Wraith steadied his breathing before answering. Rafe, operational. Ridge secured. High-value targets neutralized. Data core retrieved. Silence followed, then a crackle of disbelief. We thought you were gone. He smiled faintly, though no one could see it. Not yet. The transmission cut, replaced by an automated uplink sequence. He slotted the data core into his transmitter and waited as the signal uploaded to orbit. Lightning flashed across the clouds, illuminating the jungle canopy in stuttering intervals. The hum of the uplink echoed like a pulse. When the upload finished, a single confirmation tone sounded. Mission complete. He should have felt relief, but all he felt was weight, the crushing quiet after violence. Around him, the jungle began to move again. Small creatures emerged from hiding, reclaiming the silence that war had borrowed. He envied them. He sat beside the fallen skimmer, resting his head against its scorched hull. For a moment, exhaustion caught up with him. His muscles trembled. His hands ached from recoil and cold. He thought of Alvarez, Chun, and Becky, not as ghosts, but as people laughing around a campfire, arguing over rations, dreaming of a world untouched by invasion. That world felt impossibly distant now, yet their memory grounded him. A faint rumble drew his gaze skyward. Through the breaks in the clouds, he saw light. Alien dropships descending in formation. Reinforcements. His time had run out. The ridge would soon be swallowed again by enemy presence. He checked his rifle. 2 rounds left. Enough to make his final choices matter. He considered retreat, but something inside him refused. The transmission was away, his purpose fulfilled. But survival without meaning was hollow. The aliens would search for the source of the interference, and when they found the destroyed skimmer, they would erase every trace of what had happened here, unless he ensured they couldn't. He rose, ignoring the protest in his knees. His movements were deliberate now, ritualistic. He gathered what remained of his explosives, setting charges along the ridge, under fallen trees, inside the wreckage, near ammunition crates. Each placement was careful, methodical, born from years of soldier's instinct. As he worked, thunder rolled above, masking his steps. When he finished, he returned to the ridge's edge. From here, he could see the expanse of jungle stretching to the horizon, dark and endless. He remembered Earth's forests, greener, quieter, filled with life untainted by war. He imagined them again, whole and free. It was a fragile image, but it steadied him. He checked his rifle one final time. The weapon was scarred, its scope cracked, its frame streaked with ash, yet it had never failed him. He whispered to it, the way soldiers once prayed to their weapons. "You did good." He aimed it toward the sky, tracking the approaching dropships through the mist. The first was already descending, its engines tearing at the canopy. He pressed the trigger halfway, feeling the familiar tension. "You laughed at us once," he said softly, voice steady despite the exhaustion. "Let's see if you're still laughing." He fired. The shot found the ship's intake port, and a moment later, the sky erupted. The dropship exploded midair, fragments raining down like burning glass. The shockwave rippled through the jungle, setting off the charges he'd planted. One by one, explosions rolled outward, devouring the ridge in fire and light. Wraith dropped to one knee, shielding his face from the blast. Heat surged through the air, hot and fierce. He felt the concussion in his chest, a heartbeat that matched his own. When the echoes faded, nothing remained of the ridge but smoke and ruin. He exhaled slowly, lowering the rifle. Around him, the rain began again, hissing against the embers. The sky glowed faintly orange from the burning debris overhead. He activated his comm once more, his voice little more than a whisper. "For Earth, shifting to .50 BMG. Then he shut it off, letting silence reclaim the moment. Minutes later, distant engines broke through the storm. A human dropship emerged from the clouds, hovering cautiously above the devastation. Its searchlights swept the ground, finding only scorched soil and fragments of alien steel. The pilot's voice crackled through the open channel. No sign of the sniper. Area clear. The rain fell harder, washing away footprints, blood, and ash. On the ridge, only the rifle remained, half buried in mud, its metal darkened but unbroken. The light caught on its barrel, gleaming like a promise. High above, the human ship lingered before turning toward the horizon. The jungle closed over the wreckage, and the smoke thinned until the forest looked whole again. Yet the silence it carried had changed, deeper, prouder, edged with something eternal. The aliens would return, but so would the humans. Somewhere, in the static between stars, a message was already spreading. One soldier, one rifle, and the echo of defiance that refused to die.